NXT Halloween Havoc from October 27th, 2024, the Giant Center in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Let's talk about the show. Fun show, kind of weak main event, but we'll talk about it when we get there. Matter of fact, we're going to start there. We're going to start backwards. But first, we got to discuss the attendance. Now, for the second time, WWE has decided to run Raw in the same city as NXT. Now, NXT did 5,011 tickets distributed that we know of so far. And who knows, it might have been better if Raw wasn't the next night. I don't know why they keep doing this. Now, maybe they figure if Raw is in town, you may get people to go to the show twice. Problem is, Ticketmaster is kicking people in the gooch right now, and folks are not really interested in buying tickets. After looking at WrestleMania and all this other stuff, it's got to ask the question: why would you want to give the audience a choice between NXT or Monday Night Raw? I don't know, but it's what they're doing, and it's unfortunate. But 5,000 for a pay-per-view event between the two of them ought to be pretty good. Now, Mike Rome is the ring announcer here, and he insists on dressing like Beetlejuice, which I guess he was in gimmick. I guess he was in character. Halloween Havoc is a Halloween show. It's all right, but I hate Beetlejuice. I really do. I hate Beetlejuice. I hate Beetlejuice. So, Gigi Dolan, her face was on this show. She did the cold open. For the first time in a few years, actually, it was not Shotzi. Usually it's Shotzi. They get to do all of this Halloween stuff, but now it's Gigi Dolan, which is fine. You know, it's not like there's much difference between the two anyway. Let's get into the main event. Trick Williams defeats Ethan Page in a Devil's Playground match. Devil's Playground just means Falls Count Anywhere. This was an okay match. It was one of the weaker matches on the card. In fact, it might actually been the weakest match on the show. I'm just not sure if Ethan Page has enough to carry Trick Williams. I'm glad this is the end of their feud, actually. Ethan Page does get the WWE style, though, and we probably got that in his head when he was back in TNA doing the Karate Man stuff, but he ended up with a pumpkin on his head, and Trick Williams punching pieces of pumpkin off his head. Whoop That Pumpkin was being chanted by the crowd, which is pretty good. The referee actually botched a spot, but at least the commentators and the crowd and everybody kind of, understood why the referee might do that. So Trick Williams hit his trick shot knee strike. It was 1-2. Ethan Page put his foot on the ropes. Now, because Ethan Page put his foot on the ropes, traditionally that's a rope break. But since this match is Falls Count Anywhere, there is no rope break. So the referee broke his count. Ethan Page figured it out quickly, and he ended up just taking his arms off the mat. So he kicked out anyway, but it was one of those things where I've seen rope breaks in Falls Count Anywhere matches before, and there's always that question of the rules, because I've seen I Quit matches with rope breaks. I've seen submission matches with rope breaks. These matches are no disqualification. So, I don't know. But I guess Falls Count Anywhere, it makes perfect sense for it to be no rope breaks, considering you can pin people outside the ring. Nuts and bolts were used as items. There's always bags. Somebody got a bag of something that they're pouring out. This time it was nuts and bolts. Didn't look like it was hurt. It was mostly like flat screws, so it didn't like it hurt too bad, but it was just a cool visual of, and hearing the nuts and stuff fall into the ring. The big spot was the Ego's Edge off the steps into the announce desk by Ethan Page. The medical staff comes out there to see what's going on with Trick Williams. They're actually considering ending the match. They're doing the old internal bleeding spot so that Trick Williams can have a little bit of blood in his mouth, because they mentioned blood in the package, and they mentioned blood on TV, so I guess they figured they had to do something. In any event, it was what it was. The big finish actually came after Trick Williams was kicked in the nuts. He was kicked in the nuts while he was holding some stairs, and Ethan Page retrieved the stairs. He was going to hit Trick Williams with the stairs, and Trick Williams hit him in the nuts. Then Trick Williams grabbed the stairs, hit Ethan Page in the head with them, and then followed it up with the trick shot knee strike. 1, 2, 3. Trick Williams wins. Trick Williams is not experienced, so his matches have been the main events because he's the most over, but his matches have been some of the weakest on the show, and this one just continues that trend. So I'm a big Trick Williams fan, big booster. He should be the champion. He's the most over, but he needs a ring general in there that can really guide him. So after the match, he's attacked by Ridge Holland. Because I said it for the first time in forever. I was right about a couple of things. Ridge Holland actually attacked Trick Williams, and Ethan Page helped him. Now, Ridge Holland, he defeated Andre Chase in an ambulance match, which was the third match on the show. This match was pretty good. It was better than I expected it to be. Ridge Holland has definitely improved quite a bit. He's gone back to his original theme song, too, which is even better. Andre Chase was great. He was fighting from underneath, utilizing his agility, if you want to put agility in quotations. Basically, he just jumped off stuff onto Ridge Holland, showed some fire. And I like the suplex into the power slam by Ridge Holland. That was pretty good, too. Also, the choke bomb onto the ring apron was also very violent. A DDT on the announce desk by Andre Chase. And they fought their way back towards the ambulance, which Andre Chase jumped off of the ambulance in a swanton position onto Ridge Holland, but it wasn't enough. Ridge Holland ends up hitting the Redeemer DDT, throwing Andre Chase into the back of the ambulance, and he won the match. Much better than I expected it to be, especially since I thought this would be one of the weaker matches on the show, but it ended up being one of the stronger ones, actually. So I really enjoyed this, and I said that Ridge Holland should win if he was going to be next to challenge for the title. And considering Ridge Holland attacked Trick Williams after Trick Williams' match, let's get correct. It looks like he will be next, and great, because Ridge Holland has been in NXT for a little while now, and the whole purpose of sending him back to NXT was for him to improve, which I believe he has, for him to get over, which he finally has. You know, it took a while, but he finally got there. I think turning on Chase University finally got him over the hump. They also had him do some stuff with Bully Ray. Now, the pre-show, which I didn't watch, apparently Bully Ray and Dave LaGreca, they were in the building for Halloween Havoc. I imagine they weren't hosts, but maybe, I don't know, they were just furthering the story. I'm pretty sure Tony Khan's somewhere weeping and yanking at his hair and very, very mad at Dave LaGreca for being on WWE TV. Remember when he was mad at Ariel Helwani for doing something similar, just being in the crowd and talking into a microphone? But Bully Ray, a.k.a. Bubba Ray, he got into a shouting match with Ridge Holland. Ridge Holland came over to them and yelled at them. Apparently he did this on the pre-show. He did it again after he won his ambulance match. And because Bubba Ray is Bubba Ray, he has to be, you know, a big, bad, tough guy. He threatened Ridge Holland, says, "Oh, you did this twice. Don't make it a third." So after the main event, when Ridge Holland and Ethan Page were jumping Trick Williams, Bubba Ray Dudley actually came to the ring to help Trick Williams, setting up, of course, the ECW tie-in for their 2300 arena show. I knew they had to have one. I knew they had to have a tie-in. Bubba Ray Dudley is their top guy, apparently, in terms of willing to wrestle on the show. And you know what? The last Bubba Ray Dudley match didn't go so well. I heard he wrestled Jinder Mahal at the Maple Leaf Pro show, and it was one of the worst matches of all time. You know, at least one of the worst matches of that weekend. I don't know. If it's a tag team match with Ridge Holland, it should be fine. If it's Ridge Holland and Ethan Page versus Trick Williams and Bubba Ray Dudley, it should be fine. If it's going to be Ridge Holland versus Bubba Ray, I don't know how that's going to go. But Ridge Holland is much better than he used to be. Trick Williams needs somebody with more experience than Ridge Holland has. And that's my concern, is that Ridge Holland injured Big E. Now, this was 2 or 3 years ago now. I mean, you can't hold on forever. But you just want to be careful and ensure yourself that he has improved. But I can see it. He has improved quite a bit in the ring. I look forward to the Ridge Holland Trick Williams matches, though. I've always been a fan of Ridge Holland. You know, he's a big, meaty guy and very traditional pro wrestler looking, but kind of generic. And he needed something to spice him up. And I think feuding with Andre Chase kind of did that, you know. But he still needs a unique persona. And he should stay in NXT until he figures it out. Should he be the NXT champion? Probably not. But he's a good, worthy contender if you're going to do a TV match or something like that. Also, I just want to talk about this before we move on to the rest of the show. Wouldn't it be interesting if they used an ECW pay-per-view name for their 2300 show? Like, why not use like Living Dangerously or November to Remember or Barely Legal? Because, you know, all these... Well, most of the NXT talents are like in their early 20s, so they're not like barely legal, but the way that sometimes the product is produced is barely legal. But you know, that would have been nice. It would have been a nice little twist because they always use WCW and old WWE event names. Why not use some old ECW event names? I think especially like Living Dangerously. I like that one. That's a really good, you know, legacy to carry on. November to Remember is another one. I think they use Heat Wave, don't they? Heat Wave is an ECW one that I believe NXT has used. I don't know if they still do, but yeah, that's one. Why not use another one? All right, match 4 was a gauntlet match. Kalani Jordan versus Fatal Influence. All 3 members. This was announced on the pre-show. I did not see the pre-show, obviously. But when they did Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal on Tuesday, it was winner's choice. And since JC Jane was the one who spun the wheel, I'm going to assume JC Jane is the one who picked the gauntlet match. Which means that each one had a chance to beat Kalani Jordan. But here's my thing that I actually got out of this match is that there's a lot of faith in Kalani Jordan to be able to wrestle not only one really long match, but essentially 3 individual matches. And I think she did a really good job. The first match with Jasmine Nix was a lot more technical, and it showed that both of them are pretty smooth, especially Kalani Jordan. Like her technical, like acrobatics and arm drags and stuff like that are beautiful. Again, her weakness is her persona. Physically, she looks like, you know, the 1-2-3 kid out there. You know, like when you see early days of Sean Waltman, that's what she looks like out there. She's very, very smooth, very athletic. Jasmine Nix is slowly but surely catching up. This was better than I thought it would be. Great fundamentals. Jasmine is, you know, not as experienced as the other 2, so it was kind of a basic match. And Jasmine loses with the 450 splash. Next is JC Jane. JC Jane is a rougher opponent. She's more vicious, a little bit meaner, not as technically proficient. So when you had the finish, which was a bridging roll-up, it was a perfect way to write out JC Jane from the story because she's not as technically proficient as her partners are. Booker T was yelling about JC Jane should be ready for the main roster. And I'm like, boy, he ain't lying. He certainly ain't lying. JC, she should probably be on the main roster immediately. But Fallon Henley comes out. She's the most complete player of the 3. She's the best wrestler, and she's the most aggressive. So this match was a little bit more aggressive, and Fallon Henley was able to hang in there a lot more with Kalani Jordan physically. But this was a shorter match, if we're being honest. You got the cartwheel elbow by Kalani Jordan was pretty good here. A blockbuster from Fallon Henley was pretty good as well. Jasmine Nix distracted the referee after the split leg moonsault, which is Kalani Jordan's finisher. So she didn't get the pinfall there. She then goes up for the 450 when JC Jane distracted her. She missed the 450, and Fallon Henley follows that up with a Shining Wizard. And Fallon Henley is the new North American champion, which is what I said would happen when Kalani Jordan won the title in the first place. Because I truly believe that Fallon Henley should have won the belt first anyway. But they were using that as a catalyst to turn Fallon Henley heel. So it worked. She's a really good heel. She needs to stand out a little bit more. But her yelling, yeehaw, yeehaw, bitch, which is pretty funny. After the match, she was about to cut a promo about, the division needs to be put on notice. And then all of a sudden, Zarya shows up for the second time. Zarya showed up earlier, but she didn't do anything but stare at everybody. In her appearance here, she actually attacked all three members of Fatal Influence, actually pulled off an F5 on Fallon Henley. She didn't play towards the title or anything, but she did play towards the crowd by beating her chest and screaming and everything. She comes across like a bigger, less aggressive, which is strange, Luna Vachon. Some kind of mixture between Luna Vachon and Beth Phoenix. She's going to make her debut on Tuesday. She's going to work on Tuesday. She's probably going to wrestle against Jasmine Nix. So I thought this was pretty good. The Gauntlet match was good. You had Kalani Jordan wrestle against 3 different opponents, had 3 different matches. This girl has a big future. Kalani Jordan is a freak of nature, and I don't see why anybody could hate her outside of the fact that she's pretty plain Jane in terms of persona, which now that she has the physical attributes down, she needs to work on. She doesn't need to be the champion anymore. She's well established. This was a good way of protecting her during the 3-on-1 gauntlet. And of course it sets up rematches in the future because Fallon Henley took, 2 people to beat her. They had to cheat on top of, it being a gauntlet. So I don't want Zarya to, leapfrog Kalani Jordan getting a rematch. But I do believe that you have to get some of these new talents mixed in with the title or whatever. So I'm okay with Zarya getting somewhere near the North American title, but she definitely needs to win a couple of matches first. And I'm looking forward to seeing what she can really do. But I thoroughly enjoyed this gauntlet. I enjoyed it better than I thought I would, if we're being quite honest. All right, so the second match on the show was Stephanie Vacker and Julia defeating Cory, Jade, and Roxanne Perez. What an incredible match this was. This match was top tier. I was surprised at how well all of the characters fit together. Julia is, vicious when it comes to her strikes. I mean, my God, she hit a knee strike on Cory Jade that probably made Cory Jade rethink this wrestling thing. I'm not sure she wants to continue wrestling after she got kneed in the face like this. They also pulled off some really cool moves. For instance, like an arm trap driver or something by Julia. But what was really the best was the hold counter hold stuff that Roxanne was doing with like Stephanie Vacker. Because Stephanie Vacker is probably the best wrestler in this match in terms of being explosive, it being exciting. Her springboard, crossbody and stuff like that was really good. Cory Jade is the worst wrestler in this match, but probably has the most charisma in terms of personality. Julia and Stephanie Vacker, they're charismatic, but they don't have verbal charisma. Cory Jade at least has physical and verbal charisma, especially more than Roxanne Perez. So she carried mostly, I think, the entertainment part of the match because physically she's not as smooth or as, physical as the other members of this match. So she was kind of the weak link, but I think she even did her part. And just like I said before, I was right again. Roxanne Perez was the one who took the pin. It was a superplex into, I don't know, it was a sky dust. What do you call it? A sky dust twister. Stephanie Vacker pins Roxanne Perez in the tag team match. So they're setting up Stephanie Vacker versus Roxanne Perez. Interesting that they would skip over Julia like that, even though Julia already had her match, but interesting that they would not go back to that. Anyway, this is a really good match. I look forward to the Stephanie Vacker, Roxanne Perez singles match, which means that there's probably going to be Julia versus Cory Jade singles matches, and those are going to be funny. Those are going to be pretty funny. I'm going to be very entertained by those. I'm not sure if they're going to be any good, but they may be funny. at the very least. So the women's division in NXT is top tier. It's next level. These women are above and beyond most of what you see in women's wrestling today, with the exception of Jordan Grace and Masha Slamovich over in TNA. You know, you used to think, one would think, that somebody like Camille, who was NWA Women's Champion for, I don't know, 2 years or some shit like that, that she would be one of the best female wrestlers in the world. I'm not seeing that out of her. You would think Mercedes Moné, with all her time in WWE, would be one of the best female wrestlers in the world. She's trying her best, I think, but she's not really clicking with the audience as Mercedes. But these girls are. These girls have the internet buzzing, and people barely know who they are. And I'm talking about Julia and Stephanie Vacker. Most of them just got onto everybody's, radar, and they haven't fumbled yet. Julia has had some weird spots here and there, but they haven't fumbled yet, and they're getting over, and people are really interested in them. And Roxanne Perez, for all of her lack of personality, people like her matches. And for Cory Jade's lack of in-ring talent, people at least like how she looks, and they like her persona. So all of these girls are really getting over. They're not quite best in the world yet, but they're damn close. And NXT as a pot has some really good female wrestlers on there. So I'm very impressed by this match. All right, the first match on the show, Oba Femi is defeated by Tony DAngelo. Normally I would pitch a bitch about this because they switched the rules of the match. This was tables, ladders, and scares, which was supposed to be a ladder match, but it became pinfalls and submissions. But they tried to explain it that Tony DAngelo wanted to avoid any excuses from Oba Femi, so he wanted to have the match pinfall or submissions. Okay, I guess. Okay, I guess. Anyway, Tony DAngelo started the match very aggressive and fiery. Then we immediately got into a spear in the barricade. And then, they went to the table stuff, where Oba Femi does a European uppercut, like a running European uppercut, and crashes through the table onto Tony DAngelo. A very sloppy F5 by Oba Femi, which led to Tony DAngelo landing on his ankle. And he actually sold the ankle a little bit. Oba Femi zip ties Tony DAngelo to the bottom rope. Now Stax and Luca Crusifino jump in. Oba Femi kicked their ass with no problem. Adriana Rizzo tried to break the zip ties while Oba Femi was beating up the boys. It turns out that she wasn't quick enough, and Oba Femi started to menace her. I mean, he was walking extremely slow while letting Adriana Rizzo, back up. And then eventually, she grabbed the crowbar. He took it from her. And it looks like he was going to hit her with the crowbar or whatever. And through the power of friendship, Tony DAngelo snapped the zip tie and ran across the ring and speared Oba Femi off the ring apron through a ladder, which was a crazy spot. And then we go from there into the finish. As Oba Femi was not done, he resurrected and started kicking their asses again. When all of the members of the family, from Rizzo with a crowbar to Luca and Stax with chairs and kendo sticks, each one of them hitting him with weapons, this led to Tony DAngelo hitting a spine buster through a table, and Oba Femi lost the match. It took everybody to beat him. It was a family effort. It was the power of friendship that defeated Oba Femi this day. And, okay. Okie dokie. Where do you go from here? I don't know. But hopefully Oba Femi, gets a chance to move up the card. I don't see him falling off. But Tony DAngelo is a guy who needs this. He's been around NXT for a while now. He needed a really good run. I thought he's a great babyface, believe it or not. Despite the fact that he's a mob boss character, he's a really great babyface, and people have always been into it. They did a segment later in the show where Rizzo threatened to attack the person who attacked her on Tuesday. She's going to get them next week at NXT. So this is going to be an interesting story because I'm pretty sure this is going to also involve Oba Fami. And I think we all pretty much assume that it's going to be Nikita Lyons. We'll see. We'll see if that's the case or not. But Adrian Rizzo is going to try to fight them. That'll be fun. So that's the entirety of the show. Oba Fami and Tony DAngelo is one of my favorite matches on the show. You know, it's probably my second favorite match on the show. The number one, obviously, is the women's tag team match. I think Julia and Stephanie Vacker really did a good job with Cory, Jade, and Roxan Perez. I think that was the best match. Second best match, Tony DAngelo and Oba Fami. Third best match, Kalani Jordan and the Gauntlet. The fourth would be the ambulance match, and the worst match would be the main event. Even though I wouldn't say it was a bad match, I would say it was a weak match. Now, they did do some segments on the show. One of the segments that they did revolved around Javon Evans, and Javon Evans slapping Nathan Frazer on Tuesday. He basically questioned whether it was a good idea or not. Cedric Alexander said, well, I wouldn't have done it, but I'm glad you did because we got a title shot out of this thing. So somebody took a picture of Javon Evans' locker as he was sitting in front of the locker, and there were pictures of Rob Van Dam. So they're foreshadowing Javon Evans doing something with Rob Van Dam at the 2300 Arena show, and man, they're giving this kid a rub. I love it. So I like this. It ought to be fun. You know, hopefully he wins the tag team titles. That would suck if he doesn't win. But hopefully he gets to do something with Rob Van Dam. That could be nice. Okay. They did also a segment with Nathan Frazer and Axiom, but it was just them arguing again. And they've been arguing for months. So, I mean, what really did we get out of that? Nothing. They did a gimmick box with the Boogeyman where, you know, they do these women where these people where they put their hand in a box and they have to feel something and they have to guess what it was. But basically, it was just about the Boogeyman scaring everybody. And, you know, some of the people were acting very cartoonish in how scared they were, while other people were like, oh my God, were just freaked out that it was a real human head and that it was the Boogeyman. It was very strange. Probably the funniest thing that happened all night was before the main event, Booker T and Vic Joseph were talking about all the places the match could end because the match just falls kind of anywhere. And Booker T walks past the spin the wheel or whatever. He like, it could end over here. It could end over there. And then there's that box that Tatum Paxley was locked in. She jumps out the box, scared the shit out of Booker T. He's like, oh, hell no. And so Ava was like, look, you need a shower, you need food, you need a doctor. What's going on? So before Tatum Paxley could even ask for the match with Wendy Choo, she gets the match. And then she spins the wheel. And it lands on Casket match. So Wendy Choo versus Tatum Paxley will take place on NXT in a Casket match. And I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know how I feel about a women's casket match. I hope they don't kill the gimmick. I know it's hard to pull off a casket match without Undertaker, but they're going to try it. And this Tatum Paxley Wendy Choo thing, I guess it can use it. They need a gimmick. I think they had a match recently that nobody really cared about. So this is another chance for them. Both of them are dark gimmicks or whatever. Maybe Wendy Choo should get locked in a casket and she changes her character. But I really want Wendy Choo to go back to being the babyface. I think that this dark gimmick, we just don't need any more dark gimmicks. There's too many of them as it is. They also announced that Lola Vice will be wrestling Jada Parker in a hardcore match at the 2300 Arena, and Dawn Marie will be the referee. And I was interested in that. That I popped a little bit at that because when I mentioned the 2300 Arena show, I said I wanted them to have interesting ECW names, not the same people we see all the time. And Dawn Marie is not a person we see all the time. So this was good. I appreciate this. And plus, Lola Vice versus Jada Parker. I mean, bro, are you going to complain about Jada Parker versus Lola Vice? Because I'm not. I don't care what kind of match they going to have, brother. They can wear whatever they like. Okay? All right. So that's pretty much it. They did announce that William Regal will be in the corner of Lexis King versus Charlie Dempsey. And they keep talking about how much knowledge William Regal has on the round system and all this stuff, which is fine, but I'm not sure if they're pretending that he's not Charlie Dempsey's father, because I could have swore they did a segment on television where he said he was, and this is paying off that angle, I suppose, but the way they talk about it, they're not talking about it in terms of Charlie Dempsey is basically being opposed by his own father. But it might be some shenanigans too. So, because them Regals, they're dastardly gentlemen. That's for sure. But NXT Halloween Havoc, really good show. Had fun with it. Had some nachos with this thing. My stomach did a 450 splash in the middle of the show though. But ultimately, nachos and NXT work out just fine. What about you guys? What did you guys end up having? Did you enjoy the show? Let me know. Comment section. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression. Regression. The best don't